Content.
Scary movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll ask the questions here, and I'll give the answers.
Welcome, everyone. We have a special guest with us today, so that's pretty exciting. Randy, would you like to introduce our special guest?
Yeah. When I got married to my second wife, Jocelyn Tanis, she just showed up to the wedding. Just showed up and like, here, I'll give you away to her.
Showed up, gave a speech, sang a song.
That's right, she did. So yeah, Jocelyn and I, we go back. Gosh, I did to
2012.
2012, yeah.
2012.
Yeah, on the set of, I can't remember what it was, but
it was a 48.
Yeah, it was 48. You played my daughter. Yeah. And it worked. It worked because I wore a Jedi robe. I think the vest I have on right now. That was it, and a mini skirt.
And a towel.
Yeah, well, it was a mini skirt, but yeah, a towel. I mean, it was. Yeah, and that was it. No underwear, no nothing. I mean, well, yeah.
I've seen a couple movies like that. But...
Yeah. Yeah, we saw one with Willa Fitzgerald in it right there. All right. Okay, here we go. We're talking about Robert Eggers Nosferatu.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but we're excited about seeing it.
Yes.
Very excited.
Heavy anticipation. If you will. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right around the corner.
Yes.
Christmas.
So I wanted to have Jocelyn on because she's like the leading authority on Dracula. And everyone knows that Nosferatu is based on Dracula. I mean, Bram Stoker's widow thought so. So she sued F.W. Murnau and won. And the court ordered every copy destroyed. But as we know now, like
thankfully it didn't work.
2 or 3 copies made it.
Thankfully. Now, do we know if that was done on purpose? I've read multiple things to where it was accidental that there were some left, or there was actually some, actively hidden.
I think one copy was found in an attic in Prague. And
sounds about right.
That's the main one that everything is pulled from. But then later they found another copy somewhere. I don't remember where, that was in better shape. So, and through those 2, they've cut together like the best
a decently
copy.
Watchable.
Yeah. So, but we wanted to kind of touch upon the original 1922 F.W. Murnau, starring Max Schreck. We kind of want to talk about that and the similarities to Dracula. And I mean, what I like about the original is it is the original. It wasn't the first Dracula film. There were others before that, but none of them survived. What I like about Nosferatu is I don't remember the first time I saw it. Probably 8th grade. And I read the book in 8th grade. And I thought, wow, it's pretty close to, a condensed version of Dracula. Basically. And
condensed with a lot fewer characters.
Yeah. And we don't have a Quincy P. Morris, but
no, it really wasn't even. There was kind of a Mina, but she was just kind of there. Like, it wasn't like there's the 2 female characters and then there's the 6 guys. It wasn't the huge cast of characters that Dracula was. It was much more pared down.
I really thought it captured the mood and the feeling of the novel. So I did like Max Schreck's portrayal. And it being really the first one, I thought he was creepy as hell in the movie.
Totally creepy.
Yeah, for the movie being made in 1922. You remember when you saw it?
I believe I was a little bit older. Well, maybe about the same time, I guess. It was somewhere in late middle school, early high school, I think, and I had already dove into a variety of vampire films, obviously at that point, but the iconic, screenshots and everything of Max Schreck as Count Orlok were well known to me, just within media and entertainment, just being a legend of pop culture. But I didn't actually watch it until later. But you would think that a movie of that age to even a horror fan at a younger age would be not quite as exciting, or would not connect at all. But I remember being kind of floored because I'd never seen really anything like it. I was used to either vampires being overly sexualized, yeah, or Victorian era type Anne Rice vampires, or your From Dusk Till Dawn type of vampires. But still, even then, it was just a whole new level of Dracula and vampirism that I'd never quite seen before. And I remember just kind of sitting there being just completely surprised and awestruck how much of an impression something silent could actually be made just from visual, and how honestly terrifying it was when you could sit here and go watch, you name any type of vampire or Dracula film, but there's something so haunting about the original 1922 Nosferatu that
Mhm.
I don't think anything's ever quite gotten to that point, because even the 79 version was a remake, and even though it's almost, there's scenes that are almost shot for shot that are exactly the same, it's still more dramatized, it's more drawn out. The original Nosferatu is just like, as you mentioned before, it's kind of condensed, very condensed version.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But,
Very tight.
But yeah, I remember just being kind of floored how much it actually had an impact on me, because I just didn't think it would, being a younger kid.
What about you, Justin?
I don't remember when was the first time I saw it. I do remember I was already very firmly enmeshed in vampires are my thing, and I was firmly in my goth phase, so that's probably why I decided to watch it. But of course, even before that, like you were saying, some of the iconography from the film was already familiar, like the shadow on the wall and the long fingers, and the just the creepy him popping out of the shadows, and the teeth.
Yeah, the rat-like teeth.
Yeah, they could almost be comical, but then with the rats throughout the movie and just that kind of, it's thematic, and it worked.
And it's obviously has staying power. And it left such an impression on a young Robert Eggers that he did the play in high school.
Yeah, I was just reading about that.
And if you've seen some of his short films, he's done some short Poe films, Edgar Allan Poe, and this is why I'm really anticipating this film and excited for it, because he has a connection with the Victorian area, which I love. So that's why I'm really looking forward to this film, because I love The Witch. The Witch was amazing. And I like his other two films. I like The Lighthouse, and The Northman. I thought they both were great, but The Witch really is that folk horror.
Yeah,
and he says Nosferatu is folk horror, which I love it. I mean, he can capture that.
Yeah,
and I hear that. Bill Skarsgård you can't recognize him under the makeup at all, because he's that grotesque. And I'm like, oh boy, I can't wait. So, but
I'm excited to see what he's doing. He's such a great character actor.
Oh yeah, he's so versatile.
He just, I think,
was he good in The Crow?
We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about that.
Craig saw it, so I didn't have to. So
okay. But anyway, Bill has just become. I don't know. I'm trying to think. Who comes? Tim Curry comes to mind of being just a fantastic character actor.
Doug
With
Jones.
Through the Darkness from Legend, or Pennywise from It, or Frankenfurter from Rocky Horror Picture Show. Anything he gets lost in characters, but they're big characters, and a lot of times they're creature-esque and something like that. Bill is just somehow so excellent in the way he does that, and is, even though he's more of an actor type as opposed to somebody like Doug Jones, who is more of a creature performer and that type of thing. I think Bill really kind of is able to do the other side just as well. So I'm really excited to see him in the role as Orlok. Yeah, at this point, I'm really interested to see how much Eggers is going to stick to Nosferatu and how it differs from the original Bram Stoker Dracula novel, or if this is going to be also a remake of Dracula to an extent. It's going to be interesting to see which parts of the story he chooses to remake it from, whether he's going to follow more of a Nosferatu setting and stick with the differences and where it's straight from the book, or if he's going to try to do more faithful adaptation of Dracula himself. I just hope we leave out the love story bullshit.
Well, and that's something I like that about them describing him as grotesque, because that means that is the direction that they're going with it. They might go the obsession direction like they did with both of the other Nosferatu movies, but it's not a reciprocated love story in any way, shape, or form. This is, he's evil, he's gross, and we need to kill him.
Yeah. And Nicholas Hoult playing Hutter. I love Nicholas Hoult. My go-to Nicholas Hoult film is Renfield. If you haven't seen it, you have to. It's so cheesy. It's so tongue in cheek. It's Nicholas Hoult he's a great actor too. I mean, as a character actor, he's amazing, and I would love to work with that guy someday, as well as Nicolas Cage.
I have worked with him.
Oh, Nicolas Cage
and Defoe, actually.
Oh wow!
I think
on the same movie.
I like Nicholas Hoult and Bill Skarsgård. Like I can't wait to see Willem Dafoe in a Van Helsing-esque, what it seems to be, type character.
Yeah.
There's not a movie I won't watch if Willem Dafoe is in it. He is just so amazing to watch.
Really? A movie with him, there's not a movie that you won't watch. Okay.
No.
He's in the remake of Jaws. He's playing Clint.
I will still go watch it because Willem Dafoe is in it.
Okay.
I'll probably hate it because it's a remake of Jaws, but I'll at least go see it because Willem Dafoe is in it.
There's no remake of Jaws. They can't do that. It'll never happen.
Give it time. One day. One day.
Yeah.
One day, hopefully after we are dead and gone. But I'm sure it'll happen. I want to, before we move too far into the newer Nosferatu, I do want to hit on a couple things of the original Nosferatu. And if I'm not mistaken, we want to talk about the impact it's had.
Oh yeah.
Throughout history.
It's legacy,
and obviously. How much I'm sure people know this. I mean, some people don't. How much impact it had on the vampire mythos going forward? Because I think the original 1922 Nosferatu, that's where sunlight was brought into the equation for vampires. That was the first time it was brought out that sunlight can kill vampires too. But before then, that was not a thing. I mean, there wasn't a lot of vampire stories before Nosferatu or before Bram Stoker's Dracula. There were a couple of books like Varney the Vampire or something. Yeah. There's very few vampire. Yes. Yay. We're going to be best friends after this, by the way. But so it had a massive impact going forward from what we know today. It's heavily responsible for almost everything, in the vampire mythos, and it kind of set the outline for vampires moving forward.
Right.
For what we know today.
And actually, one of the things that it brought into the forefront of the mythos was the use their obsession against them in order to kill them, which actually, it's funny. Sesame Street, the Count, he counts.
Oh,
yeah.
He's a vampire, and that's because of the myth. You could throw a handful of mustard seeds on the ground in front of a vampire, and he would have to obsessively count them, and you could make him count them until the sun rose to kill him. And that's, even Sesame Street.
Same thing with shoelaces.
Yes.
You tie knots. They have to untie knots. If they suspected somebody is a vampire, when they would bury them, they would take rope and tie hundreds of knots in the rope and throw it on top of the coffin, so that if they woke up, they'd have to untie all these knots.
Which sounds so silly today.
It does. It does.
Oh no!
Yeah. And
I won't be eating for a while.
Remember the episode of the X-Files where they had a vampire? And Fox Mulder threw a bunch of sunflower seeds down.
Oh, yes, okay.
And the vampire's like, damn it! And he starts picking them up. Like, why do you have to do that? That's all I remember about that episode. But I loved it. And now I want to watch it. I want to find that episode and watch it.
I'm sure there's a lot of deep-rooted German, societal reasoning for why they chose to do rats. I always found it really interesting why they chose to bring a horde of rats over with Orlok, because that was never part of the original Dracula thing. The main thing that from the novel was that what they saw was a large black dog jumped off the ship, and that was it. But in Nosferatu, we chose to bring in this whole aspect of him bringing along a plague essentially with him, and it was always interesting to me that they made that choice.
Yeah, and I hope Eggers really leans into that, bringing the plague, bringing the rats, because in the original he brought the rats with him. And the same thing with Werner Herzog film. It's just there's the rats, they're here now. It's was Orlok the Pied Piper?
Yeah, I was thinking of Pied Piper aspect. Yeah.
And I think a lot of it was just symbolism of the plague.
Yeah, I think
Black Death coming along with Orlok or Dracula himself. Their death is coming with him.
Yeah,
and I think it symbolized that. And at the time when the original Nosferatu came out, I think there were some societal things that went along with that too that played heavily into that. But also, I mean, there's the mythos of vampires, specifically Dracula, and being able to control certain animals and being able to become an animal, things like that. So I think that was kind of what they chose in their way to go about that, but also be able to say something, symbolically along.
Well, and of course, the original was kind of made in the wake of World War One. So I definitely think there's some symbolism there between how their government was changing from between the two wars, basically.
Right. Yeah, because films kind of tend to follow history.
Is for you guys is Count Orlok scarier in the original 1922 or the 1979?
Go ahead, Jocelyn.
79. I mean, 79? The original, for what it was at the time, I'm sure it was absolutely terrifying. But I think part of what makes it a little less scary over time is the more static nature of the makeup. His face doesn't change a lot. There's not a lot of expression there. And he has dead eyes, which in some ways works really well with the character. But at the same time, I feel like the slightly more expressive nature of the makeup and the actor's eyes in the 79 version make him they give him a little bit of an edge.
Right. And I agree with that. And I think nothing wrong with Max Schreck's portrayal.
Not at all.
But Klaus Kinski was such a fucking nightmare to work with. But what he brought to the role, there's a line that he has that sticks with me. I'm probably going to paraphrase it because I can't remember the line exactly. It's loneliness is the most abject pain. Mm-hmm. So he's really playing this very lonely character, and he's been that way for centuries. And he can't die, or he won't die. So he just doesn't give a shit anymore. He doesn't care about anybody, which makes the evil that much more, to be feared. So, I mean, that's my take on it. I just think, Kinski was such a great actor and he was so talented that he could emote that from.
Yeah.
Nosferatu
is what Phantom of the Opera would have been after 300 years.
Yeah.
Ugly and obsessed.
Yeah.
So I'm actually the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah?
Believe it or not. Yeah, I there's something so inherently terrifying to me, and so striking about the original Count Orlok and Max Schreck. And Jocelyn talked about it, and I think those things like the dead eyes, there's something so abstract and peculiar about Orlok in the original that's what makes it scarier for me. It's this. It feels like it's something you can't quite put your finger on. It's so strange and unusual and constantly out of place, but absolutely just terrifying. Because, in the 79 version, not that there's anything wrong with it, but we're giving it more depth. We're humanizing Orlok a little bit, with trying to add more character and things like that. But which normally would work for me. But there's just something so striking about the original Orlok. That's the one that I find scarier to me, and that I like watching. So
I could have said Kurt Barlow from Salem's Lot.
I mentioned this in our Salem's Lot video that I reread Salem's Lot.
There we go.
And it's amazing how much Salem's Lot steals.
Oh, from Dracula, yes,
from
it does.
Dracula
It does.
and Nosferatu.
Yeah.
And you forget because over time, Salem's Lot's kind of become part of the mythos of vampires itself because it's so old. It's so much older and so sought after. But in reality, it made me like, oh man, it kind of reminds you. You want to know where it really came from? Here's the real roots.
Yeah, and a lot of cocaine went into writing that novel.
not as much as Maximum Overdrive.
Yeah, no, that was the movie. Yeah. But yes, anytime Hollywood wants a grotesque vampire, they go the bald Nosferatu type vampire, and that's wonderful. That's great. Even in the new Salem's Lot, which was so freaking horrible. Have you seen it?
No, for exactly that reason.
Okay, yeah. I mean, when you do a podcast about horror films, you have to watch shit, schlocky shit. And it's not even schlocky.
It doesn't deserve that level of hate that Randy gives it. Okay, there's something to be said about the simplicity and how much it has to condense. I'm telling you.
And we can even talk Midnight Mass. Midnight Mass is a very Nosferatu.
Oh, man, that was good.
Yeah, and so when you want that, that's what Hollywood gives us. When you want that grotesqueness. So I hope and I pray that Robert Eggers, in the trailer, it looks like Nosferatu has hair. Okay. That means he's not going with that trope, and I hope they got him right. Because I really want to see him unbridled. I want to see him just balls to the wall. This is what I want. This is what I'm doing. And if you don't like it, fuck you, because this is what I want to do.
Maybe it's just kind of gross and stringy. Maybe Eggers, in a sense, is trying to stick with the original, look of Count Orlok and Nosferatu, but also maybe try and pay a little bit of homage to how Dracula was originally portrayed in Bram Stoker's novel when Parker first goes to the castle and meets him. He's thin and just kind of
and hairy palms.
Old man. Yeah.
Nobody's ever done the hairy palms.
And so it'll be interesting to see if that's maybe the route we go.
Didn't Netflix give their Dracula hairy palms?
I've tried to block it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were like, after the first episode, we were like, okay, this isn't bad.
Yeah, talk about the biggest letdown in the
There we go.
fucking history.
Yeah.
I was so excited after that first episode.
Oh, yeah.
And I was even, oh, gosh.
Yeah. And,
Ugh.
and then when we go to the convent and meet Sister Agatha, I'm like, oh, sweet.
Yeah.
But
I was even down for some
like,
changes.
what the fuck?
Yeah, it went completely off the rails. But that's a Moffat Gaddis thing. Like, I love them, but they go off the rails at the end every single time.
Oh god, yeah,
And that guy was even great as Dracula. I thought. A little old school.
Yeah. I mean,
in the sense of Dracula, but I liked it.
One of the things that we have talked about, like on numerous occasions, is the perfect Dracula movie. Who would play Dracula?
Honestly, and I've said this before, and you're going to hear me say it again. Coppola's Dracula. I refuse to call it Bram Stoker's Dracula because it wasn't. Coppola's Dracula had the perfect cast. They were just all in the wrong parts. Richard Grant would have been perfect. He looks right. He's got that long, skinny nose. He's got that gaunt look to him. He's tall. He's incredibly skinny. He's perfect. He would have been phenomenal.
Yeah. And I agree with that, because the image that I have in my head of Dracula from the novel, that it's just etched in my head, is tall, black shadow. That's it. It's just, like 7 foot tall. I mean, yeah.
So Christopher Lee actually had the right look, in my opinion. Christopher Lee looked right for it.
Yes. Especially when he did Jesus Franco's, Count Dracula, with the white hair and the mustache.
Christopher Lee might be my favorite Dracula.
I kind of want to touch upon Todd Browning's 1931 Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi. I think led to fucking Twilight.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Because that became the staple. The aristocratic, gentleman vampire. The love story came out of that. Actually, it was Peggy Webling that started that whole fucking thing. That's what. But like, when I saw Bram Stoker's Dracula, I went to the theater to see it, and I'm like, wow, that was like probably the closest thing we'll ever get to the novel. And I think I said that to you once, and you're like, what?
You did. And no, the sad thing is, you're absolutely right. You're right. It's so close, and yet
so far.
Right. And the funny part is, I had, after we talked about, I had to reread the book, and I'm like, well, fuck, it was so far off.
Yeah.
I mean, just it's far off as Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was.
Right.
And we've had that discussion.
Oh, yes.
Although it's far off, I think the deviations are so distracting that it makes it feel further off. We're adding in the ridiculous. Although I love Bram Stoker's, or as you said, Coppola's Dracula. I love the film, and I love it because I think it's just a good movie in general. But I hate the fact that there is the love story between Dracula and Mina. I hate that aspect.
Yeah.
But it's hard to hate it when it was done beautifully, I think, within the confines of the film. I just hate that we added that part in there. And then you add in the backstory of connecting, Dracula with the original Vlad Tepes and that nonsense.
That didn't bother me, because there's a line in the book where Van Helsing says he indeed must have been that same voivode that fought the Turk.
Yeah, okay.
So, and I've argued people, like, he was the same voivode. They're like, what the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck is a voivode?
They've spent so much time trying to look into and research and find a real life connection that Stoker had in any of his notes or anything like that. And I don't think we're ever going to find anything that gives the official, other than cues you can pick up from the book itself. But.
Yeah, and that was just a line from Van Helsing in the book. So, I mean, was he really the boy brother? I don't know. I kind of think Van Helsing knows what the fuck he's talking about.
Typically.
I'd venture a guess, yes. But I also like the level of ambiguity you're given originally in the Stoker novel, because I think that's what made the original novel so terrifying, in the aspect of, because now I may be crucified for this, but what always made Bram Stoker's Dracula great for me was not in the literal writing itself, but was in the world that Stoker was painting for everyone and the mythos he was creating. It wasn't in the actual specific wording and flow of literature he was creating, but it was the things he was doing that arguably were unheard of. I mean, like, what 1879?
1897.
97. There you go. 1897. Like, I mean, nobody was writing literature about like having to decapitate a creature, or feed babies.
Yeah, the blue lady.
Or was it two or three times? Two times in the book. Whatever, that they brought a baby to the brides.
Right. Yeah, they did that at the castle, but then they did the whole Bloofer Lady storyline with Lucy, children in London.
Lucy, which is a whole nother level. And it's just thinking about that, you're like, holy shit, this guy was fucking bonkers for writing that back then. And so, like, that was always, for me, the things that were just so groundbreaking was the real brilliance of Stoker's Dracula for me in all that aspect.
Right.
Well, and in some ways it was the flipping the script on, okay, an evil man preys on women. What does an evil woman prey on? Innocence.
Yeah.
So it's that whole flipping the script with Lucy as this beautiful, kind, pure woman, and when corrupted, she does harm to the most innocent people she can find, children.
Yes, I do commend Coppola for keeping a lot of almost page-to-screen things. With like the wolf coming through the window for Lucy. Although we added in the whole like werewolf aspect. Sort of, because in the book, Mina only sees like a dark figure kind of like bent over her, not like a wolf man, like almost, vaguely raping her out in the courtyard, So yeah,
there was nothing vague about that.
True. Well, in the confines of the book, it wasn't so. I guess seeing it on screen, you're like, oh yeah, that's definitely what's happening.
That's what was happening.
It's Red Rocket time for Wolfman. Like, whoa.
I can't believe you said that.
But things, and I think Lucy specifically, there are a lot of things that Coppola did wonderfully with Lucy's storyline in the movie from the book that I love. That I think out of all the characters from the book, she is probably given the best portrayal from page to screen, as far as like things that happen and being straight from the book and things like that. I always thought Lucy's character was one of the best ones done in the movie itself.
Yeah, I'll give you that. And like I said, he did keep so much. It's just that love story permeated and just killed all of it.
Right. Yeah.
Although, like, again, like, I hate that it's there, but man, I just, that, come on, across oceans of time. I mean, like, that's just killer. Like, the love story in Bram Stoker's Dracula is better than, like, most love stories in the existence of cinema. Like, it's just, I hate that it's there, but it was done so damn well that, like, it's hard to fucking hate it.
Yeah, it is a better love story than Twilight.
It is.
Everything's a better love story than Twilight.
Yeah. Hallmark movies. Hallmark should remake Twilight. It'll be better.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a double-edged sword with Coppola's Dracula, because so much was right, but so much was wrong.
Yeah.
And Keanu Reeves is so miscast in that.
Oh yeah.
movie. I'll defend Keanu Reeves till the day I die, but he's just so out of place in that.
I don't even think that was Coppola. I mean, I think that was studio interference.
He's hot right now. Put him in the movie.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because really, they didn't have any other major they didn't have any major headliners in the movie other than him. You had a couple of people who had had big hits in the previous decade, or you had people who we are character actors and we know it and we're good,
Right.
but nobody's going to come to see us.
Right.
So we've got to put Keanu Reeves in there.
Unfortunately, at the time, nobody's going to go see.
Yeah. Van Helsing, Anthony Hopkins was just.
Yes.
I
love that man.
I love it. I wish he had been Wildman in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
I love Anthony Hopkins. He gives a very Nicolas Cage portrayal.
Yeah.
It was a bit manic.
But it works so well for Van Helsing in that setting. It's fucking beautiful. I love every aspect of it.
So and Anthony Hopkins comes to mind with Willem Dafoe in Nosferatu. I wonder if he was cast because he could go there, and because Willem Dafoe, it doesn't matter how far off the rails he is, he's still amazing.
Mm-hmm.
He's incredible. Well,
Yeah,
I was just watching because we were talking the other day, and I just realized I had never actually seen Shadow of the Vampire.
Oh,
so I didn't get to finish it because I wanted to finish the Nosferatu first. But I started watching it, and I'm about an hour into it just before I came up here to do this, and I'm enjoying the hell out of it. It's delightful.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
Yes.
I mean, it's Willem Dafoe, enough said. I mean,
So his Orlok is his Max Shrek is that's a crazy performance.
It's amazing, and I love. It always felt
he just wants to kill. He just wants to drink blood. But like in the '79 version, there's one scene that really stands out to me, and Klaus Kinski is outside, and he's like got his hands up like this, and Renfield comes up to him and is like leaning on his shoulder, like rubbing it. I'm like, what the fuck? And Kinski's like, almost like Kinski was probably like, get the fuck away from me, In the trailer for Eggers Nosferatu, we see a vampire hunt happening, and I'm sure that happens when Hutter's going to the castle, or maybe coming from the castle. I don't know where, but it seems like gypsies are involved in everything. And so I'm excited to see what that's about, honestly, because it's like, wow, this is new. This is new.
We're going to add an actual, we're going to kind of the hunt for Nosferatu or Dracula.
And
there was in the original Bram Stoker novel.
But they're digging up a grave. That's what's happening in this.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
I don't know. They're injecting a little bit more Van Helsing than originally expected them to. The foes,
possibly
character type. I don't know. I wonder if they're also trying to fill the gap. This is just my personal opinion. It always seemed like Nosferatu, and even the original Bram Stoker Dracula, there's a lot of unconventional heroism. Like there's not your specific number one hero of the story. Like in the original Bram Stoker, like it's not like Harker is your main, I'm the hero of the story. Or Van Helsing or anybody in that aspect. It's very much a team.
We all know that
effort.
Quincy is like
yeah. I mean, essentially,
if anybody's a hero, he's that archetype.
Quincy for that role, if there is to be made a hero, it would definitely be.
Well, and that's kind of you're right about that. There is the hero archetype in Quincy, but he's not the primary focus. And there is, there's the tragic heroine, but she's not the complete focus. So you do have actually all of those archetypes, but no one of them takes center stage.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I could see Jonathan coming up to Quincy. It's like, all right, we got to go hunt this vampire down. You could die. Quincy'd be like, all right, let's do it. Let me grab my 66 rifle and my Colt Peacemaker. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go fucking do it.
I love the chase in the grand finale of
It's
of Bram
fun.
Stoker's Dracula, the original novel, but I do enjoy the movie version of that. It's very exciting and
Fun.
It is fun, but I love leaning into the fact that again there wasn't one specific hero. You have a team that has to to go on the hunt for Dracula.
Yeah, I think my favorite scene in Bram Stoker's Dracula is the scene after they release Lucy, and they're sitting around the table eating, and Anthony Hopkins. Yeah, we cut off her head, and it's like real nonchalant about it. Like I do this every day, So, I mean,
which just always makes me think of Mel Brooks' Dracula Dead and Loving It.
Oh.
I will never not laugh.
Yeah,
of like Leslie Nielsen bent over and like there's just straw sucking sounds. It's so stupid, but it's so goddamn funny to me.
Yeah.
And then the Lucy scene where there's just like buckets of blood. There's
Yes, Van Helsing keeps hiding behind the pillar. Oh no, you have to stab her again.
Fantastic. I love it. Oh man, I wish. You know what?
What?
I'm pissed that we didn't get to see, like, what was it? It was like a gypsy lady get completely like ripped apart by wolves in Coppola's Dracula movie. Didn't that happen in the book? In at a certain point, while Harker's there, like,
she came looking for her baby.
Show up. She came looking for a baby. That's right. That's right. Yeah, she came looking for a baby because Dracula, look, gotta feed this to my brides. Yeah. And so she shows up there, and he's like, "No, I'm gonna have my wolves just eat you and rip you to shreds." Like, that's terrifying.
I forgot about
horrendous.
That. Yeah,
and it was all just adding to the psychological horror that was mounting up on Jonathan.
Yeah, he's building up because poor Harker's just peeking his head out a window, and there's Dracula just crawling along multiple times.
Yeah,
in the book, he like doesn't he steal his clothes? Isn't like Dracula steal his suit?
He steals a couple things.
At one point.
He steals a couple things from Jonathan. He keeps taking his writing implements in his diary because he writes to Mina in shorthand, and Dracula's like, "I can't read this crap," and he takes it. He's like, "It's demonic speech" or something like that.
I'm pretty sure he specifically took his suit and wore it to like go get one of the babies, and then he sees him yet again like scaling the side of the castle, but like in his own suit. Like what a mindfuck for Harker. And it's funny to think back and think about. Like, no wonder that guy went fucking crazy.
Yeah,
because he wasn't just like, it wasn't like Dracula was just like, "Hey, I'm a vampire. Shit's gonna be bad for you." It was like this amalgam of all this different things going on, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, don't go in any of the rooms."
While reading the book, the last time I read it, I laughed out loud when they're searching London, like all the buildings that Dracula has in London. They go in one, and there's a table by the front door, and Dracula's keys and shit are on the table, and I'm like, I just thought, okay. I'm like, I didn't know Dracula had keys.
Hey, I mean, you gotta, you never know.
My takeaway from Dracula is a grotesque fucking vampire.
Mm.
I mean, that was my takeaway.
That's one thing that I don't know that they'll ever completely be able to convey in a movie. Like, even if I finally get my way and I make it right, nobody's ever going to completely be able to convey the just incredibly slow burn at the beginning, where every journal entry just gets a little more unhinged. Mm-hmm. And every letter to Mina gets a little bit more, okay, this went from being something weird is happening to, Mina, honey, I might not make it home if you're reading this. And but it takes such a long time, and it's the incremental building of terror until you finally get to being bitten by the brides and the Count leaving and Jonathan being like, shit, he's going to London. Yeah. And I can't do anything.
I've thought about this, Bram Stoker's Dracula and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which I'm still working on my adaptation of Frankenstein. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm like 75 pages into it, and Frankenstein, and I'm like, the creature hasn't even been created yet.
Nothing's happened yet.
Like, I'm like,
Right.
They could do Dracula right if they set out to do what Netflix set out to do and failed miserably.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan showing up to the castle, all of that is one movie. And then you get a part 2 and a part 3 to tell the whole story.
Part 1's clear up until Dracula leaves for London.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, even though
that's
they
a hell
don't
of a
spend any
cliffhanger.
time on it,
Yes.
even though they don't spend really any time on it in the book at all, I
The Demeter?
yes, I want a proper film about that made.
Right.
God, that movie pisses me off because
we know about that. Yeah,
like I've been dreaming about like a book or a movie specifically just about, because it was just there was nothing about it really, but there's so much story to tell there.
Yeah.
And that's then, again the slow mounting horror of reading the captain's journal entries after the fact.
Yes.
And just the more you realize he's realized something is wrong.
Yeah.
And it's Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None.
Oh, good. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
On a ship with a vampire.
Yeah, and when they first announced the last voyage of the Demeter, I'm like, it could go good, it could go bad. But if they have the bookends to it and they get that right, it might not matter what they do in between. But no,
shot that.
No, they proved me wrong. I mean, shit, they
got it.
I mean, the beginning of the film is all right. I mean, it's cast great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the really disappointing thing. Was like, wow, this could actually be good.
Yeah,
it's not.
It goes off the rails. And here's the thing: bat-like vampires, I fucking hate that makeup. I'm so over that makeup. And they're like, when we first see Dracula on the ship, I loved the makeup. He was really thin, really frail, and his teeth looked like they were just rotted, and they weren't fangs at all, and they just looked rotted. And I'm like, oh, if they stay that way, but he's naked, then I mean, give him a cloak. Jesus, God.
I love how they wouldn't commit to the idea from the original text that like when he feeds, he gets younger and younger. Like he got in better form on the Demeter, but he was still this grotesque fat thing. It was like that. Why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we fully committing to?
Because Hollywood doesn't know how to do
because we didn't make it.
Original.
God damn it! It's horrible.
But at the end, I mean, at the end, it was
at the end, where there's a magical survivor from the Demeter.
Yeah. But that becomes, the Jonathan Harker character.
Yeah.
I don't know. Fuck. But when we do see Dracula at the end in the streets,
we get one shot.
Yeah, I'm like, well, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
And so, but it didn't redeem the movie.
No.
And I bought that fucking movie. I watched it once, and I'm like,
lesson there.
I'm like, why do I even do this to myself? I'm like, I knew it would be this thing. But
now you brought up Midnight Mass a little bit ago.
Yes.
Just complete tangent, but I watched the show and then went back and read the book. And this is one of those extremely rare instances where the show was so much better than the book. It's unbelievable. The book is awful.
Oh, wow. But it had a good premise.
It had a great premise. It's completely divergent because Mike kind of goes off. Flanagan kind of goes way off with the stories that he tells, which is fine. I have no problem with this because he goes so far off. It's like, you're not making a mockery of something I loved. Yeah. You're making your own thing that has loose ties to this other thing.
Right.
But that book is awful.
Is that the Repairman Jack writer?
Yes. And I love some of his stuff. I really do.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's crazy. I read Midnight Mass like a long time ago, and the show, like you mentioned, is so different that I did not think that the show was based on the book itself.
Yeah. I mean, other than there's a priest.
How different they are.
Yeah. There's a priest. That's about it.
Yeah,
But,
right? Yeah. I mean, thankfully, because as you mentioned, the book is, even though I love F. Paul Wilson, the book is
it's terrible, and it didn't have to be, because the whole first half, I'm going, oh my gosh, I know where they're going with this, with the whole, they desecrated the temple, or the church rather, they desecrated the altar, and when he's reconsecrating the altar and then becomes a vampire, I'm like, he's set it up perfectly for the blood of Christ to be the blood that can sustain this guy, and they don't touch it again.
Yep.
They didn't do that. They never went that way. And it's like, but that was the setup. That's where we were going with this. Redemption, blood of Christ, vampire. Wow. And he completely didn't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And the characters make so many stupid decisions. It's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
you all deserve to die. You are dumber than everybody in every horror movie ever. You all deserve to die.
Horrible throwaway. There must be something about like really good writers that write a one-off vampire book and it's not very good. Like, even though I like it, Fever. Oh my God, that's crazy! I was just gonna fucking say Fever Dream. Holy shit!
Yes.
I was just gonna mention this book. It's not necessarily bad, but compared to his other writing, it's incredibly subpar.
It is, but at the same time, it's so Mark Twain meets Dracula.
Yes.
It's so Riverboat, Mississippi, that very particular era of American fiction that I hate. But it's so good. If you completely ignore the fact that it's George R.R. Martin and don't try to compare it to anything else he's written, it's fabulous.
Ron Perlman.
Oh.
He's the only person I could picture while reading Fever Dream as the captain. Was Ron Perlman. Right?
Yes. I was actually going with old Hollywood when I was picturing him, and I was picturing, crap, I'm not going to be able to think of his name. Not Burl Ives, but the guy that kind of looked like him. But, just kind of this grizzled, kind of, I'm kind of a big guy, but kind of grizzled. I can't think of who it is for the life of me. It'll come to me 20 minutes after we hang up.
Yeah. Or I will think it. I know who you're talking about. I will think of it. I'll think of it like 10 minutes from now and just blurt it out.
Yeah.
That happens all the time on here. Yeah.
So as the Dracula connoisseur, I'm curious what would be your rendition of what was missed in, not what was extra thrown in, but what was missed that needs to so badly brought to film that Coppola missed in his version.
Honestly, I think a lot of it is just the slower burn, and there was no subtlety in Coppola's Dracula. It was very in your face, and that was part of the design of it. It was designed to be sumptuous and just gorgeous and big and beautiful. And I think that kind of took away from the very tight aspect of the story, because he didn't show up to London to wreak havoc on all of London. He showed up to London to wreak vengeance and havoc on Jonathan Harker and this very tight-knit, very close circle of people. So I think that making it big and grand takes a lot away from the true terror of he's seeking these specific people and he's not giving up. And there's a very stalkery vibe that you can go for with that. Very, Criminal Minds, dark, grim, and just very close horror. Very, the little tiny room that I'm in. How is there a shadow up here? Just very small horror. And I think making it big was a mistake there.
Right.
I would bring it way back in, tighten it up.
As good of an actor that Gary Oldman is, do you think he was miscast?
Yes, because he was too big. He was too much.
Right.
And I think Richard Grant can play that, because he did it with Seward. He did a wonderful job as Dr. Seward, but I think him as Dracula, he would have brought this very lean performance.
Yeah. And have you seen any of the behind the scenes from that movie where Gary Oldman's like looks like he's ready to explode on Coppola because he's like, I don't know what the fuck you want me to do. It's like, wow.
He won't give me any direction.
Yeah. So, like, fuck. Okay. So it looks like there probably was a lot going on behind the scenes that.
Well, and I've read that he isolated Gary Oldman, and everybody else was always having dinner together, and he wanted the rest of the cast to be very close and very tight knit, and he wouldn't let Gary Oldman participate. Oldman was always off on his own. He ate alone.
Right.
He did everything alone. Which I get that, but not everybody is method like that, and it doesn't.
Right.
I had a guy on set one time who's very method, and I was supposed to be angry with him, but I'm smiling and chatting with him between takes, and so he tried to make me angry, and I'm like, you don't need to do that. I'm not method. Just say action, and I'll be mad at you. But stop trying to make me mad off camera. Like, that doesn't work for me. Yeah.
So while we have Jocelyn on,
yes, back to Dracula and Nosferatu.
I want to. We haven't really had a chance. We haven't done a lot of vampire stuff, and
I haven't.
Even the werewolves are my favorite. You absolutely fucking love vampires, but we haven't had anybody to really think at it. So I'm curious, and I want to know, like, what other. You seem to be a reader, obviously. We don't get a lot of those.
You think?
Yeah. And so I'm curious. I want to ask you about movies and books. But since I already mentioned reading, do you have outside of when we talked about Fever Dream, obviously, do you have other favorite vampire novels?
Vampire novels? Yes. Actually, shockingly, one of my favorites, and it shouldn't be because I honestly hate the main character, is Sunshine by Robin McKinley. And it's written in the first person point of view of this young woman. She's a baker. And it's kind of semi-futuristic. Supernatural beings are kind of out there. Everybody knows that they exist. She gets kidnapped by vampires, thrown into this old house, chained up next to another vampire who's trying not to eat her. But she's there to tempt him into breaking his whatever. It's shockingly good. They help each other escape. There's absolutely no doubt he's not a good guy. But they end up working together to defeat a much worse vampire. It's really interesting, just the whole magic system that she created with it, and it's very subtle. And I shouldn't like it because I absolutely do hate the main character. She drives me nuts. I'd punch her in the face if I met her in person. But it's really effective in this story for some odd reason, and I love it. I've read it like 6 or 7 times. It's one of my favorites, and I'm glad nobody's ever tried to interpret it to film because it will fail. It'll be awful.
That's awesome.
That's definitely a favorite, and I really like the Discovery of Witches trilogy. Don't watch the show; it's terrible. It's terrible, horribly miscast. But the trilogy is excellent, actually. Very steeped in history, especially the second book when they're actually in the late 1500s Europe, and it's not just Elizabethan England. They go all over Europe, which I love because that's a picture of Europe you don't usually get. You think Elizabethan, you're in England, but you forget how much else was happening in the world. And I love that they actually go explore that.
Are you familiar with or have you read anything by John Skip or Craig Spector?
I know the names, but I cannot say I've read anything.
They're kind of the purveyors of like the whole splatterpunk movement in the 80s for extremely, gory horror novels. They wrote a vampire novel called The Light at the End.
Oh yeah, I know the title.
It's incredibly it's very gory. It's very 80s, but that one's my personal favorite vampire novel, like of all time. I love it. So everybody I talked to, nobody's ever read it. I mentioned it earlier. I think the reason I love it so much is it's very much a character ensemble type piece. All the main characters are different people from the city that, because of extenuating circumstances, all kind of get brought together to face this vampire. And it reminds me of how everybody kind of comes together. There's no specific main hero in the original Bram Stoker's Dracula. I think that's one of the reasons why I was drawn to it so much. But it always reminded me of that. So,
well, if you like The Witcher and you like vampires,
yes,
Daywatch. There's 4 of them in the series.
Yeah.
So yeah, Russian, very grim, very Russian. Which that's something I actually love about The Witcher is, again, a bunch of fairy tales and stories that are either they've been Disneyfied or, I like the Russian ones because they are dark and they are grim and they're horrible.
Are you familiar with Laurel K. Hamilton?
Oh, yes.
Yes. So everybody's always like Twilight or Sookie Stackhouse and like True Blood and on all that. And
Those are just fun and silly.
I was like, listen, guys, like I don't know how everybody missed Laurel K. Hamilton, but before there was any of this other like weird supernatural love story bullshit, like there was a chick that wrote these books that were pretty hardcore horror, but also kind of had the love triangle going on between like a vampire and a werewolf, and that was Laurel K. Hamilton's Anita Blake series.
Oh yeah,
and I don't know how it never caught on to film or TV because like that was like the first, but it actually had a set of balls with it too, and but nobody's like, yeah, I don't know what that. I'm like, so tired of all this other modern day like supernatural romance. Drives me nuts. But like somebody needs to go back and read like the first 5 Anita Blake novels because they're fantastic. She plays this. She's a necromancer, and she actually like, works for this company. So like she goes and raises the dead for like legal issues. For like people that didn't finish like like their will or something like that. But she's also a certified vampire hunter because vampires have been like kind of like in True Blood or the Sookie Stackhouse novels. Vampires
they've come out of the coffin.
Yeah, they come out of the coffin. They're in society, but they're much cooler and much better. And like each big city has like a master of the city, and they have to follow specific rules. And if they don't, then somebody like Anita can go and take them out, and it's okay. But you can't just go murder a vampire just because you want to, because they also have rights too. Sorry, I got off on a tangent there.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome to hear a guy talking about how much they love the Laurel K. Hamilton books. I love that.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're amazing. I don't know how many books in. I kind of had to tap out because somehow at the end of every book, Anita got a new special power, and she ended up being the Superman kind of character. So I lost interest. It took a while for me to get there. And this is weird for a guy too, but like too much sex got to me after a bit too. And I was like, all right, guys, we're doing a lot of fucking, and that's great, but I miss people being ripped apart by monsters, because early on, I'm geeking out right now, so you're going to have to forgive me. There was a big to-do about Anita. She was in love with Jean-Claude, who is this master vampire of the city. Yeah, but he's a fucking badass, all right? But then there was Richard, and he was I guess not right away. He wasn't the alpha right away. He had to beat another werewolf's ass for that later on. But there was a big love triangle. And it was like, who's she going to go for, And so, like, the first time she bangs Jean-Claude, like, it wasn't just like a Game of Thrones, like, fuck scene. It had brevity. It had weight to it. It meant something for the story. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just an HBO fuckfest. And I can't stand that shit in books and TV because all these sex scenes, like, sure, just like any other straight male, like, boobies are great, but what do they mean? What does it do for the story or this character? It drives me nuts. I don't like it. So,
well, see, then you may or may not like one of the ones I'm writing. It's a novel, and it's a werewolf novel. But where a lot of books, like, they'll start horror and then like you're talking about, starts kind of really horror and then kind of transitions into romance. Mine does almost the exact opposite. It starts as this cute romance where the werewolf meets this girl and he likes the way she smells and they start dating, and it transitions into absolute horror by the end.
I'll read it. I will talk forever. I need to stop. So I'll talk about Anita Blake for way too long. Yeah, Randy's over here like, get this guy the fuck out of here.
No, a lot of times when we have guests on, I mean, we've had a lot of guests on.
Yeah,
we've had a lot of guests.
A lot,
yeah. Well, we've interviewed a lot of people. That's how we met David Naughton, Dee Wallace, and Kane Hodder. We went to Nightmare Weekend in Des Moines.
Yeah,
and we were the only press there.
You're kidding
There
me.
was one other guy.
There was
one
a
other
couple
guy.
other ones, but I don't. They weren't like doing anything.
We were taking. Well, we were grabbing Art the Clown and going back to to the green room and be like, okay, give me everything on Terrifier 3.
Oh, we talk a lot about movies. Do you have other favorite vampire movies?
Yes.
I actually really enjoyed the first couple of Underworld movies.
Yes.
The first one and Evolution are my favorite.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, I really liked, even though you already kind of know the story, because they tell the story in the first movie, but I actually really liked the pretty much flashback movie. The whole thing that started the war.
Yeah,
that was pretty good. That was pretty good too.
But I love Michael Sheen. He's amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
Michael Sheen is amazing.
The thing about Michael Sheen is, like, he's not a big guy. He's not some huge, terrifying, intimidating guy, and yet I have absolutely no trouble believing that every single one of those huge, enormous werewolves was terrified of him, because I was.
Right? Well, he was commanding and big and terrifying and also sexy and like
super sexy.
Yeah, like I was like, wow, okay, like
he's just got such
a weird
presence.
Mr. Sheen. No wonder Kate Beckinsale had a thing for you because weren't they married at some point? Or no?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are they married currently or something?
No, because she left him for the director.
Oh, that's right. She left him for Len Wiseman.
Len Wiseman. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a weird situation. Anyway, but like, yeah, it's weird thing about Michael Sheen because like Underworld, he's like this werewolf, badass, awesome, kind of sexy guy. And then like thinking about nowadays, it's been many years now, and I get stuck in a loop watching the videos that him and David Tennant do back and forth together. Have you ever seen those? Those are absolutely hilarious.
Those kept me sane during COVID.
Right? Yes, I watched so many of them, and I still go back and I rewatch them multiple times. Randy, what's your favorite vampire movie?
My favorite vampire movie. I haven't made it yet. But
the Salem.
That's a great answer.
Oh no, not the Salem's Lot. Oh God.
Fright Night. We didn't even talk about Fright Night.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say Fright Night. Yeah, Fright Night. Fright Night is Jerry Dandridge is so cool, right? I mean, Chris Sarandon is fucking perfect. The ultimate.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like suave,
dashing, debonair
vampire. Chris Sarandon, Jerry Dandridge is the ultimate. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that in the theater when it came out, and I'm like, I love the scene where he just takes a bite out of an apple and throws it to Charlie.
Yeah.
You see the apple, and he like the first bite, he like almost all the apple. I'm like, fuck, that's cool. I wish I could do that. I don't know why.
I think Chris Sarandon was like, out of so many people that have played a vampire, he's the number one for me that was equal parts sensual, sexy, but absolutely fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Like you didn't know whether to kiss him or run from him. Like holy shit. Yeah. Like Fright Night's my favorite vampire movie of all time. And
he's up there.
He's fantastic. He was just
if not the best, he's up there.
Well, the 80s actually had a run of really good, gritty vampire movies. You had The Lost Boys.
Yeah. And
Near Dark.
Near Dark is very underrated. That was, I think it was Kathleen Bigelow, right?
Yeah,
that's
her
first film.
Yep.
Yeah. And it has all of the has the cast.
All of Aliens.
All of Aliens. Oh my gosh. We go to fighting xenomorphs.
Why somebody apparently a vampire bit Hudson and Vasquez and Bishop and
Lance Henriksen made a great vampire.
Lance Henriksen makes a great
anything. Yeah.
Him and Willem Dafoe, have they done a movie together?
I don't know
because they fucking need to.
We were talking about guilty pleasures earlier, so like the Frank Langella Dracula from '79 is one of my, and Dracula 2000.
Wes Craven.
Yeah.
Horrible title. Horrible title.
Oh yeah,
felt like the best Dracula reveal It's so much fun to make him Judith. Like I love that idea.
Yes, that was great.
It was so perfect, and I love that movie. That's a guilty pleasure of mine as far as like vampires go. That's right up there for me. I like it, but I didn't love Dracula Untold. I really love Luke Evans in the role.
Yeah, it's another guilty pleasure. You got to admit the cave scene with the
absolutely. There's a lot of excellent fun scenes. For sure. Yeah.
And Luke Evans, his armor really resembled Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula armor.
Yeah, so, I think they were definitely trying to make that visual connection.
Yeah, they did.
And then, of course, you've got Interview with the Vampire that I only watch for Antonio Banderas. I adore Antonio Banderas.
He's amazing.
I love Interview.
I forget how many films he was in that like were really big for me when I was a little bit younger, like Interview with the Vampire or Desperado.
Oh yeah,
God, I love that movie so much. Like, there's a lot of stuff. Antonio Banderas, he was in one of his earlier roles with Stallone in Assassins.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I love that.
That's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
So, love Antonio Banderas, and I do like the original Interview with the Vampire. I never was a big fan of the book, and I read Interview, I read Vampire Stat and Queen of the Damned. Was never terribly in love with the books, but I did enjoy the movie. I actually really liked the show. I don't know if either one of you have seen the new Interview with the Vampire show.
No,
I haven't watched it yet. I'm waiting to binge it.
I really like it. Like every change they make, I'm like, I like it.
No,
I love it. And the guy they have playing Lestat, holy shit. That guy is vampire like Lestat perfection.
Nice.
Like stunning. It's really really good.
Like
of course.
Tom Cruise was he was good, but he was great remember when he gets his throat cut and he bleeds out and he's like fucking emaciated and like woo, and then he comes back from the swamp. I'm like, that's the kind of vampire. That's the kind of vampire movie I want to make right there. That's it.
We always talk about 30 Days a Night. And
oh god,
the pacing. It's a good movie. It's just the pacing just fucking kills it.
No,
right afterwards.
Here's the thing: 30 Days of Night is amazing. The build up to the vampires showing up. When the vampire shows up, it falls apart.
But I love the vampires in 30 Days of Night.
I don't.
Really? I love how feral and creepy they are. The sounds they make and I like that
they were a little more zombie than vampire.
Yeah. One of my favorite things in Vampires mythos is when in literature or film or TV is when they dive into like a hierarchy and like a level of power that they have. Like, I think a lot on vampires on film or TV. You just don't get a lot about the vampires themselves. And if you do, it's like this really overdone humanizing bit for like a Dracula type character.
Right.
I really wish that they would do more of that.
I agree with you there. I actually really like in the Iron Druid book series. Have you read those?
No.
So there's a vampire character. He's introduced very early on. He is very old. He's quite ancient. He's a Norse vampire.
Oh.
But you can't think about Eric Northman. You can't think about Sookie Stackhouse. He's an ancient vampire, and he hates Thor. And his entire purpose in these books is he wants to kill Thor.
Oh.
And he's enlisting everybody else's help because he wants to kill Thor, because Thor's an asshole. And Thor destroyed my life, and he destroyed this guy's life, so it's a whole bunch of people getting together to go kill Thor. And it's really interesting.
Wow.
It sets off a whole chain of world-ending world events when they have to go kill Thor.
I like it.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Well, of course, Buffy, Angel.
Oh, Buffy was great.
That was like my childhood.
Yes.
So much Buffy and Angel. Like, it was a week, every single week for God knows how many years that those both ran.
Yeah,
Loved it.
there was an episode of Fear Itself starring Doug Jones, and the episode was a remake of the Warlock from Black Sabbath, starring
Warlock.
Boris Karloff as in his only vampire role. Doug Jones, it's more of a Wendigo kind of thing. I think it came out, like the series came out in 2009 or something like that. When I saw that, I'm like, there's my fucking vampire right there. Fear Itself, look it up, watch the episode. Can't remember what the name of it was, but look for an episode with Doug Jones in it. I mean, you love Doug Jones anyway. Everyone
yes.
does.
Everyone
Yeah.
does. Everyone should.
Everyone should. Yes.
I will admit one of my guilty pleasures is Vampire Diaries, the TV show. But really only when you get to where the originals come in. I like Klaus and his siblings. It's terrible.
You and my wife
It's a horrible CW vampire show, and I still watch it.
It's better than Twilight. I mean,
it's still better than Twilight.
Yeah. I mean, everything's better than Twilight.
Well,
like,
true, but like it had an edge to it, you know, a CW edge, but it's still an edge, you know. Wasn't Supernatural, which was like, that's like my favorite show of all time.
Oh,
it's Supernatural.
Dad's gone on a hunting trip, and he hasn't been back in a couple weeks.
Oh man,
my favorite episode of Supernatural is probably the one that takes place in Dubuque, Iowa.
Oh yeah, there's a couple. There actually happened. There's multiple episodes that happen in Iowa.
Yeah, because there's a lot of
there's
shit.
an Ankeny. There's an Ankeny, Iowa.
Oh yeah? There's a lot of shit. A lot of urban legends, urban myths, whatever that originated in Iowa.
Yeah.
And the one episode was the Hook. I think it was called Hook. Maybe it was called
Hookman.
Huh?
The Hookman.
Yeah. That originated in Iowa.
Yeah.
In Dubuque.
I think that was.
They got that right.
Might have been season 1. I think. Actually.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that was really early.
Yeah. My favorite. Actually, I have a favorite Supernatural episode. I believe it was season 2. It's called Heart. Werewolf episode, believe it or not. But it's not just because it's a werewolf episode. It's Sam, like, for the first time, actually, like, really starts to fall for a girl. And at the end of it, there's kind of a surprise. They weren't even sure it was her going around killing people, and she didn't know it. And then you find out she is the one doing it. And then they try to cure her, and they think they cure her, but they don't. And at the very end of the episode, they have to kill her because they don't have a choice because she's going around killing people, and Sam can't do it. So Dean goes in and he does it for him. And the ending shot to the episode is just of Sam, and Dean walks away with the gun, and you just hear the shot go off. Sam winces, and it's like the most heart wrenching. That episode. There's so many good things about that episode. I love it.
That's really where the whole Sam's dick of death thing started, though. So every woman on the show Sam sleeps with dies.
Yeah. Sam does have to. That's so true. Have we covered everything? Vampire, Nosferatu.
We've
Dracula.
We've covered Dracula within an inch of its life.
We didn't cover Blackula.
Oh no! Blackula and Blackenstein are a couple of my favorite blaxploitation films. We haven't covered Nosferatu, the rated X version. No, I always said if I ever made a porn, it would have to be a vampire porn, and it would be entitled Nosferatu. Yeah.
Solid.
I love it.
And then I'd do a crossover with Nosferatu meets Fuckenstein. It's nothing like Andy Warhol's Frankenstein.
No. Or, you know what? We didn't talk Nosferatu when he visits Venice.
There's a reason we didn't talk about that. I thought you were going to bring up Andy Warhol Dracula.
Yeah, well, I was getting there, but then I got punched in the brain by Nosferatu.
Yeah, well, it's just Klaus Kinski in Venice, is what it is. Yeah. I think he actually had the teeth from Nosferatu, and he put him in upside down.
What's the line that Udo Kier says? Oh, these whores are killing me.
Yes.
Because that movie's so fucking ridiculous.
Oh,
because it has to have the blood of virgins, so the guy goes around fucking all the way, so he doesn't have anybody to eat. Oh my god!
I mean, that's one way to defeat a vampire. But
what about the scene where Otto is telling the story of how he got the loaf of bread with blood all over it? There's an accident in the village, master. A 12-year-old girl was run over by a car or something, and blood everywhere. And I grabbed this loaf of bread from it, and I threw myself upon it. Oh my god! And Udo Kier's like, oh, so you've seen it, right? You've seen it, right?
No.
Oh my god!
You have to go see it. You and anybody that watches or listens to this episode has to watch Andy Warhol's Dracula with Udo Kier. Oh man!
Yeah, Udo Kier's perfect Dracula.
I mean, he's a really good vampire.
He is.
But holy no!
It opens with he's sitting in front of the mirror, okay, and we don't know he's sitting in front of the mirror yet, but he's got white hair, and he's combing in dye to dye his hair black, and then the camera pull around him. You find out he's looking in a mirror, and there's no image. And so he's dyeing his hair black.
I don't think Andy Warhol meant any of this to be funny, but holy hell, it is hilarious.
Yeah, so Warhol's Dracula and Warhol's Frankenstein they were rated X because of the gore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the same guy who played Otto in both of them.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? And Frankenstein, he's like, I know how to do it. He's like, jumps on the female creation, and he's like sticking his hand up inside of her. And I mean, yeah, you have to watch these. They're so absurd. I can't do it. What?
Count Yorga.
Oh yeah, Yorga. Yeah.
That's a guilty pleasure. I love Count Yorga.
Yeah, Slaughter is one of mine.
Captain Kronos.
Yes.
Loved Captain Kronos.
I mean, there was a
Vampire Circus.
Vampire Circus. Yes, Vampire Lovers. Yeah. Dracula's Daughter, like 1935, the sequel to the 1931 Dracula, is actually a very underrated vampire film. It's like Dracula's Daughter.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Yeah, it's like got this really lesbian vibe going on in the film.
Yeah, very Carmilla.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah. So,
I love all the Christopher Lee Dracula.
Oh, Christopher Lee.
Oh, sure.
Great. And the horror of Dracula is...
horror of Dracula is the best.
Amazing.
Even Stars of Dracula,
yeah.
as bad as it is, it's got Christopher Lee like giving it 125%, like he always does.
Yeah, like Taste of Blood Dracula is really like horror of Dracula.
And then there's completely opposite end of the spectrum, Only Lovers Left Alive.
Yes.
Oh,
amazing film. An amazing film. I love that movie.
Tom Hiddleston.
Talk about like a straight up character piece. I love like Midnight Mass. The show was such an incredible character piece. Only Lovers Left Alive. I love that movie.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
I don't think anybody saw that. I didn't think anybody saw that movie, but obviously you guys have seen it. So
I watched it on the plane to London.
Huh?
I watched it on the plane to London.
Oh wow!
Midnight Sun. I always plug this when I can. Josh, I don't know if you've seen it or not. There's an independent vampire film called Midnight Sun. I think it's still on Tubi. I always tell people to go check that out. It's a fantastic movie. Like extremely low budget, but incredible. We could be here for 10 hours talking about
we could.
Read Blood Red by James A. Moore.
Blood Red.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think when we go see Nosferatu, we'll review it for sure.
I think we need to have Jocelyn on again to talk vampire before.
Yeah, we should. We should. 'Cause there's a lot of vampire films that like Mark of the Vampire, Return of the Vampire, really good non-Dracula vampire films, but Bela Lugosi was playing Dracula in them. I mean, even though he's Armand Tesla in one of them. I can't remember which one. Return of the Vampire, I think.
There's a lot of good, even though they get kind of wacky. There's a lot of good Asian Eastern vampire films too.
The ones that hop.
Yeah, they do hop. They do hop.
Yeah.
Complete tangent. There's actually an episode of the BBC TV series Father Brown, which murder mysteries solved by a local priest. But one of them is there's a death on a film set. They're shooting a vampire movie at the local abbey. And somebody, I think the director, gets killed. So they're investigating on the film set. But it's really fascinating because they're actually still shooting the film, but they're rewriting it as they go. And the leading lady is about to be ousted because she's done so many of these and she's been doing it for so long. So she's no longer young and attractive and, by the standards or whatever. And the leading man is gay, but he's closeted because it's the 50s. And it's a really great episode, though, because they keep showing scenes that they're filming from the movie. And you watch it evolve from just this schlocky horror piece to something that's actually really good by the time they finish it.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah.
There's a book series. I think it's Jocelyn Tanis is the name of the author. The main character's name is Quincy Morris, but he's a descendant of Quincy Morris from the Dracula mythos. Like,
that's cool.
Black Magic Woman, I think, is the name of the first book. Anyway, we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah.
We're excited for new Nosferatu.
Very excited.
We love both the 1922 version and the 1979 version, as well as Shadow of the Vampire.
It's precious. It's ridiculous.
Jocelyn, thank you so much.
Yes,
this was.
Thank you
amazing.
for having me. This was wonderful.
Absolute blast. I knew it was going to be fun, but it was way funner than I even thought it was going to be because I didn't know how much I was going to be able to geek out with you. So that was very exciting. Like, share, subscribe.
Yes,
all of our stuff. Come check out our other videos and join us for more reviews and deep dives and overall horror movie buffoonery.
All right.
Catch you on the next one.
Thank you.
Yes. Bye. Love ya.